Hey ho, let's go. Hope everyone is well. Welcome. Pugsley's spitting this winter paradise that I'm coming to you from in upstate New York. We're 2 days into what I'm going to call Pug at Dallas Cowboy fan week. They've had a couple of days. And the memes on the internet, it's hard to focus on work without the quality of artwork going on out there. Anyway, I am Sean Pugsley Martin. This is episode 82 of Pugsley's Pit. And as we always do this time of the show, we begin by asking you the question, where else would you rather be than right here? Boom! Right now. By way of introduction, I'm a freelance sports writer for the Albany Times Union, avid sports fan, big time homer for my teams without apologies. You can follow the show on Twitter at Pugsley's Pit, taking the podcast, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. And remember, as my 7-year-old twin boys would say, smash that like button and be sure to hit subscribe icon on the YouTube broadcast for this and future episodes. Later in the show, in my world, we're going to follow up with the Raider coaching search. I think we're near the finish line and good news coming to the Raider Nation, I hope. We're going to hit on the NFL playoffs, though we may get into it before that segment as we get into the divisional round and a special message from me to a good number of Chicago Bulls fans of that particular organization. Before we get to, I guess, I do have a medical update to give you. I suffered a typing injury during and after the Dallas Green Bay game. It's a thumb and finger injury on my phone while trolling the Cowboy fans on Twitter, which has just become as good a pastime as you're going to find in this world. So the injury will pass. I will forge ahead to this show, which will not have a second delay. So we may not be able to discuss the How About Them Cowboys with one of our esteemed guests this evening. But first, let's welcome back friends of the program from ball9.com, Mr. Chris Vitali, Mr. Nelson, and making his debut in the pit. One of you talk about Twitter sensations, Mr. @NotGayetti, as we discuss Major League Baseball Hall of Fame voting announcements about a week away. Gentlemen, welcome.
What's going on, Sean?
Where was that thumb when you injured it? Because I got a couple ideas of where it might have been placed. Just
I was sending out some very humorous tweets and reposting some of the funnier memes that I've seen. And there's a lot of them. But I don't want to name names. I don't know. We might have a Cowboy fan in the house, so we'll.
You do. And should we just get this out of the way?
Yeah, get it out of
the way.
I can't get enough of this topic.
I should have known when I ordered a Dak Prescott jersey and it got here 2 weeks ago, before they beat the crap out of Washington. And then, I know. There's a reason why I only have jerseys of retired players. And that was the reason. I mean, I should have just got a Danny White jersey because nobody cares. Nobody cares.
You find a Clint Longley jersey.
Matt Bauer.
God, a Paul Jones jersey would have been so much easier, except they're very difficult to make. Evidently, the little Vietnamese kids have a hard time sewing the 72. Whatever the case is, that is not the point. Point is, the Cowboys are terrible. Knew that they were not. You know what? I bought it. I bought it into the hype, and I bought a freaking Dak Prescott jersey. So he stunk. The defense stunk, and like I said, if Dan Quinn wants to coach Seattle, I will pick him up and drive him up there myself in my Jeep. They get 14 miles a gallon. I don't even care, and I'm making him pay for gas. That's all I got to say about the boys.
Yeah.
Well, clearly he doesn't want the Seattle job because he coached his way out of that.
Yes,
I did
His way out of any job.
Chris, I did find some unfiltered audio of halftime in Jerry's box from Sunday.
God. That must have went well.
Hey, Bill, it's Jerry. Can you be in town tomorrow? I'm already here, Jerry.
Can you imagine?
Can you be in the place?
Going to be like, oh,
can you be in the place by 10 and bring some bourbon? And he brings bullet bourbon. What you need when you need to fire your coach and you don't have the right words, bring bullet.
I mean, not for nothing. I like the bullet rye. I mean, I'll say that. But
because I would suggest a nice cup of hot cocoa to help settle you down a little bit.
Well, I don't know. After last night, there might be a unless Arthur Blank decides to rename the Atlanta Aquarium after Belichick and gives them 4 Home Depots and $27 million a year. There might be a race between Philly and Dallas for Belichick.
I think
the Sirianni hasn't been fired yet is shocking to everybody in this city.
It's hard to picture him in someone else's ratty sweatshirt, right?
Yeah. You need a short sleeve, grumpy old man, named me, walking around the sideline.
I know people are freaking out thinking that the Cowboys are going to hire Belichick, but I mean, is that really going to help? Let's be honest here.
No, he's not going.
If anything, it's going to make for a worse 10 years.
He's not going to go with that overbearing owner. Arthur Blank got him one of those.
They're friends. They are friends.
With his name on it. Monogram.
Oh, please. Belichick. I know we're here to talk about baseball, but let's be honest. Belichick is not going to – he's not taking over the Falcon. Belichick is going anywhere. It's going to be a high-profile job, and he's going to take the Cowboys job. I hope Jerry does not – I hope Jerry doesn't take it. I mean, it's like, look, am I curious as to what Belichick can do with that Cowboys defense, with the personnel they have? Yes.
You could bring back Josh McDaniels with the OC.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. No,
and maybe Matt Patricia.
Give me Mike Vrabel, call it a day. Give me Raheem Morris, call it a day. That's it. Anyway, I believe we're here to talk about baseball, so I'm just going to stop before.
I will tell you, it's much easier. I don't have, as a Jet fan, I never have this anxiety at playoff time, ever. No. I just don't.
Never in a fucking playoff.
I don't get like I'm not stressed out. I'm not worried about what's going to happen. Are we going to make it? Are we going to get a home game? I don't have to worry about it.
54-year rebuild.
Yeah.
So baseball. Baseball. Not Gaetti is here. He's an incredible.
My accountant's calling me. That's going to be good.
Incredible Twitter follow. Not Gaetti. I know you track a lot with the Hall of Fame. You track a lot with the voters. We're about a week away. Based on what you know, who do you expect to go in?
I think we're definitely going to see Adrian Beltre go in. I was hoping that we'd see him go in unanimously, but that already can't happen because somebody voted for, I think, Manny and A-Rod and nobody else. I took a lot of issue with that ballot because one of the things that is a frustration to this whole generation of Hall of Fame voters and those who watch these Hall of Fame voters is that they're specifically instructed to consider a player's character, integrity, and sportsmanship, right? We talk about the character clause, but there's no guidance about how to apply it, what counts for or against the player's character or integrity or sportsmanship. And each voter is free to draw the line wherever they see fit individually. So you can see how being suspended by Major League Baseball for using steroids might cut against the player's integrity and sportsmanship and character. So when you see a ballot that only includes Manny and A-Rod, 2 guys that served steroid suspensions, but not Adrian Beltre, one of the greatest all-around third basemen to ever step on a baseball field. You just wonder.
Sensitive head.
Yeah. I mean, right, he's one of the most fun kind of characters. He adds a lot to the game, adds a lot to the vibe.
First ballot, hands down.
Yeah. Even just performance-wise. So to see some of these ballots, and that's not the only one that I took issue with. There are people who are adding Omar Vizquel now, despite some of the things that have come up about him. There are guys that are kind of arbitrarily dropping fellas that they voted for last year, it's like, what, did Todd Helton have a bad 2023 in the stats? Like, no, it's ridiculous.
Chris and Mike, weigh in on that, because that was one of my questions. Guys, if a guy's a Hall of Famer today, is next week or next year when you vote?
Well, I will. I will absolutely weigh in on this. And, and Frank, I mean, I agree with you to a certain extent. But you know what, Vizquel, if you want to really worry about this character clause that is not, it's just not, there's nothing behind it. I watched the video today where, voters, like, there's no behind character clause. It's open to interpretation. I don't believe that that's a kind of screwy, if you ask me. Do I think Vizquel should get in? I do, just because of the defensive wizardry, things like that. Do I think he's a good person? Absolutely not. But where is that line drawn? If we're good for guys, and we're gonna put guys in, like, good. Yeah, I'm glad Manny's getting votes. I'm glad A-Rod's getting votes. I'm glad these guys are actually, they should be in the Hall of Fame. A-Rod should be in the Hall of Fame. Is he an asshole? Excuse me. Yeah, probably. But is he one of the best players in Major League Baseball history? Yeah. I mean, was Ty Cobb a jackass? Of course he was. So come on. I mean, you have to draw the line somewhere. And again, when you have a guy like Bud Selig, who turned a blind eye to, and I know enough players that hate the term steroid era. They hate it because they all played in it. I talk to guys every day. They all played in it, pitched against these guys. They hit against these guys. You know what? That's on the commissioner. It's not like we have, Bart Giamatti out there now who loved baseball so much that he wrote poetry about it. We have, it's true. It's true. Think about it. You got a guy like, you got a used car salesman in Bud Selig who owned the friggin' Brewers and made so much money after the strike for all these owners and put people back. If he's in the Hall of Fame, I'm sorry, you put these guys in. I mean, especially a guy like Bonds, Clemens. These guys were Hall of Famers before anything, before Game of Shadows came out about Bonds. I don't know a book about Clemens, and if there is one, I don't want to read it, but you get my point. I mean, you understand the point. I mean, if you're going to throw Selig in there, all bets are off. And that's just my take on it.
Mike, what about you?
Well, on the steroid part, I have a distinct line. If you fail the test, you don't get in. Barry Bonds never failed a test. He never failed a test. And this is the same argument that I use about Pete Rose. When Joe Jackson gets in, we can talk about Pete Rose. When Barry Bonds gets in, we can talk about all the rest of these guys. Barry Bonds is arguably he's in the top 5 of the 5 greatest players that ever played. And that was before he did or didn't do whatever he did, right? He's on the shortest list. He's on the Mount Rushmore. And people don't put him on there because, he cheated. His head was 15 times bigger when he was in San Francisco than Pittsburgh. He never failed a test. There are hundreds of guys. There's whispers about multiple Hall of Famers and what they did or didn't do. Bonds, the writers don't like him.
Yep.
Right. So my bigger problem with the voting process now is it's a be careful what you wish for. We wanted the ballots to be made public because we wanted to see who's the jackass that didn't vote for Derek Jeter. Right. We wanted that. And now they're public, and these idiots are taking a stand and clickbaiting their ballots, and it makes me insane. It makes me insane when I see this Rod and Manny Ramirez and nobody else on it. It makes me nuts because you're doing a disservice to every player that ever played and recognizing their careers by making a mockery of the voting process. And that's exactly what they're doing, because they're screaming for attention and they're getting it. And they're taking away from what should be a celebration of Beltre for sure, right? Yeah. And it should be, is he going to be a unanimous? But like my feeling on unanimous, and I think Frank and I have exchanged, back and forth on this on Twitter, is if you're in, you're in. Like if you're 90%, you're 100%. I mean, it's like if you're a Hall of Famer, you're in. And it should be unanimous, and there shouldn't be this grandstanding of, I asked him a question one time and he was mean to me, so I'm not going to vote for him.
Yeah, right.
If I may,
you may.
And this is directed towards Frank. I believe you said something the other day. I mean, how many people didn't vote for Hank Aaron?
Yeah, 9 didn't vote for Hank Aaron, and the same year, 45 didn't vote for Frank Robinson.
I wonder why.
45.
I wonder what motivated that.
I'm not going to get into that. I mean,
yeah,
but the actual numbers of what happened. Well, yeah, but I mean, it was a different world. It was a different world. Let's be honest.
I know, but it's still the same. But it's one and the same.
I agree. I agree, but I mean, but the thing, and this is, I actually have a question for Frank, which is, I mean, those 9 guys that didn't vote for Hank Aaron. Here's the thing: what kind of weird mental deficiency did they have to not vote for Hank Aaron, who is top? I mean, look, I mean, if you want to tell me some of the best players of all time. You can give me Babe Ruth. You can give me Barry Bonds. You can give me Hank Aaron. You can give me Mickey Mantle. I'm good with it. But what the hell was that? And is that like little tiny group of jackasses enough to want to change how it's voted for?
I mean, it's insane because at the time Hank Aaron retired, he was even higher up on the leaderboards than he is today. And he's still the all-time leader with unbreakable records, 2297 RBI, 6856 in total bases, just head and shoulders above everybody. And still, when he retired, there were 9 voters on that panel who said, I don't think so.
That's insane.
Yeah, right. And
that's crazy.
So, I think Beltre will get like 98%. I think he will get very, very close. I think there are only 1 or 2 ballots so far that haven't included him. He's going to be 98, 99%. It's going to be huge. But I thought it was a good opportunity to see if we could get a unanimous position player inducted, because he's one of these few guys. I'm not like a big analytics evangelist, but he is a guy who measures very, very well in both the traditional stats and the longevity, the durability, the advanced stats, the range, defensively, offensively. The guy was a game-changing force, and, I'm going to be really happy to see him get in. I hope it is also Todd Helton's year. Many players that I've talked to have said that he is the greatest hitter that they've ever been teammates with, just in terms of bat handling and hitting for average, hitting for power, using the whole field. I hate that the Coors penalty, I think, weighs so heavily on him, because he played his entire career in Colorado, but even his, road OPS is higher than the overall career OPS of Tony Gwynn and Wade Boggs. So it's like he's basically Babe Ruth at home and like George Brett on the road. Like, so what?
Yeah.
Do
you think Larry Walker getting in a few years ago? I know he played in Montreal, but Larry Walker getting through that Colorado label may help Helton.
I do think that is that's a good litmus test for anybody that played in Colorado, especially during that time. And I've spoken to guys that, pre-humidor and post-humidor, it's very, very different how the ball traveled at Coors Field. But I also have talked to enough guys, they did not approach him any differently. I've spoken to enough pitchers that they did not approach Todd Helton any differently at home, on the road, pre-humidor, or post-humidor. Every pitcher I've ever spoken to said that I could hit, man, and it didn't matter where you were facing him, you're gonna attack him the same way.
I want to ask about one other player,
and he still could do it. I mean, that's the thing about Helton. Helton should be in my opinion. Yeah.
I want to ask about one other player. I'm going to show you if I had a ballot, what it would be. Mike, a colleague of mine the other night is a big Philly fan. I said, "Hey, is Chase Utley a Hall of Famer?" His answer to me was, "Well, Scott Rowland is, then Chase Utley is."
No, not the same. Not the same. First, I mean, look, Chase Utley might be my favorite Philly player of all time because of the way he played the game. He played 100%, 100% of the time, and he gave everything he had when he played, all the time. But if Jeff Kent's not in the Hall of Fame, Chase Utley's not in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry.
Yeah, good call.
I mean, Chase Utley had a really, really, really good career. Can you make an argument for him to be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. But when you compare it to the fact that Jeff Kent's not in the Hall of Fame, no, you can't.
Yeah, I think Kent belongs. I had a discussion, Mike.
Offensive numbers at the position are he's in the top 5 in every offensive and traditional offensive category except for batting average. I mean, and another, he's like the writers didn't like him. He was surly. He didn't like to give interviews. Whatever the reason was for not voting him in, and hopefully when it gets to the, when he gets to the whatever it's called now,
the era committee,
the era committee, the era committee, that they'll look at him as the player that he was, and he'll get voted in. But Chase Utley in the Phillies Hall of Fame, absolutely, without a doubt. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to make a really strong case for him.
Yeah,
as a Hall of Famer. His career wasn't all that long. It was not as long as I thought it was. I mean, did he play the game the right way? Yeah. Was he a player's player? Yes, absolutely. But I'm not sure. He's in that grayish area where it's very easy to make a case either way. And for me, my case is that I just don't see him as a Hall of Famer. I never I look at guys I try to simplify it as much as possible. Like when you look at players and you reflect on what you saw when you watch them play, it's not about what I pay money to go see this guy. There's not a lot of those players, right? They don't come along that often. There's not that many in baseball right now, maybe a dozen that you'd pay money to go see that. Like, hey, I'm going to go see the Dodgers because Ohtani's on the Dodgers. Wow, I can't believe I said that. Like I'm going to a Yankee game and I'm from Cleveland. I want to go see the Yankees because Judge is playing. There's not that many guys that you're going to spend money to just go see them play specifically. But when you reflect on the longevity of their career, it's easy to see like this guy was one of the greatest players that I've ever seen at the time that I was watching. And Chase Utley was a really good player. He made, I think, 6 All-Star teams. He won 4 Silver Sluggers. But does that make him a Hall of Famer? Right? Or if he won 2 MVPs, he's not in the Hall of Fame.
I'm trusting Seth Brown is on that must-see list. The A's just re-signed him. Sell the team, John. Sell the team.
He's not. He's not. He's not. In fact, there's nobody on that roster. I think everybody on that roster, they should pay you to go see at this point.
No, come on. Well, I'm going to still say we because I think the move is going to fail before I enter fan.
Maybe Shane Langoliers is the guy.
So I am still wearing my A's shirt. No, Geloff is good. No, we got 1 or 2 more. I can't remember who they are, though. I have to refresh myself.
My guy on the ballot that I think that doesn't get enough credit for the career that he had is Bobby Abreu.
Yeah, here, listen, I'm going to put up my ballot. If you guys pick a name, you want to go through it and address it, fine. Whether it's on mine, I definitely want to know who you guys will go in. Here's what I'm thinking. Steroid guys go home. I do think Jeff Kent belonged. Mike, the big man in Massachusetts, and I had a brief conversation about that today. I'm sure we'll get back to it tomorrow after he listens to this. But yeah, and Pete Rose, by the way, he knew the rules. He knew the consequences. He did it anyway. So, que sera, sera. Mr. Not Gaetti, what are your thoughts? Who would you vote for?
Okay, so I do fill out a ballot every year, just a hypothetical one. I of course do not have a vote, um, and my thinking has actually changed a little bit even since I filled out this year's. So I would have stuck it in the mailbox with 8 names on it,
Okay.
and my hypothetical ballot is Abreu, Beltran, Beltre, Helton, Jones, Pettit, Sheffield, and Wagner. And after sleeping on those choices, if I could do it again, I would have also voted for Joe Mauer, which would give me 9.
Okay. What about Mauer? Do you think? Because to me, I look at the numbers. I know the numbers. You follow these guys the way you follow baseball. To me, sometimes my first test on a player is if you ask me, he's a Hall of Famer. If I can't say yes in 5 seconds or less, then it's probably no. I know that's wildly unfair, but you kind of remember the guy's career at that point. What about Mauer changed from one would be submission to the next?
So I agree with you, and there, between the fact that he only caught really for kind of half his career, and then spent like the second 50% of his career as a below average offensive first baseman. I just didn't think the counting totals were there. I didn't think the aggregated body of work was there. But when you look at just how high his peak was, you look at some of the unique things that he brought to a lineup by being able to, have like a 365 batting average out of the catcher spot. That's a luxury that most teams don't have.
Yeah.
You have a catcher who hits like a first baseman, but you can also have Justin Morneau hitting like a first baseman. And that kind of flexibility, it does add a lot to a team. Before he had concussion issues, he was a great defensive catcher. He's the only catcher to win 3 batting titles. He was a one franchise guy in his hometown, which, always adds something. It's got that like Cal Ripken feel, that Derek Jeter feel, like, a one franchise icon. He's one of the dudes that they have in Minnesota, and really just a very impressive hitter in the first half of his career. I decided to leave his name off, so he is not on the ballot that I tweeted. Seeing now the momentum that he's got from the real voters, also, there's like a peer pressure aspect to it. It's like maybe if 80% of the voters are voting for him, maybe I was the one that got it wrong. So I don't know. And some of the other guys that aren't getting a ton of support that I did vote for, I added Gary Sheffield, who I did not check last year because it is his final year of eligibility. And in terms of, like Mike was saying about where he draws the character clause line, Chef admitted to steroid use after the fact, but he never failed the drug test.
Yep.
I did not vote for Manny or A-Rod, both of whom were failed tests, were suspended. A-Rod extensively tried to cover it up. Manny retired rather than serve his second suspension. Just bad looks all around. Whereas, like, did Pettit use HGH? I think he admitted to that. But during his career, and listen, I recognize that a Pettit vote is some real Yankee homerism, but he was also a postseason, workhorse. He did a lot of amazing things for the dynasty Yankees. I don't think he's going to get in. I was happy to toss him a vote. And like Mike mentioned about Bobby Abreu, very unique profile. He got it done in ways that weren't glamorous or popular at the time. He drew a lot of walks. He ran the bases exceedingly well. Guy stole 400 bags, had 900 extra base hits. If you look at the combo of runs scored, runs driven in, walks, stolen bases, extra base hits, he is up there with any of the elite players in baseball history. You just wouldn't know it.
Mike, what about you?
So I agree with your 5, and then it's Abreu, it's Sheffield, it's Billy Wagner, and I would vote for Mark Burley.
Really?
Oh,
I would, and I would because he's a body of work guy. He was consistently, he was 14 consecutive seasons over 200 innings.
You don't see that anymore.
No. He's kind of like he's in between. He's the bridge and the gap of the 300 inning guys and the 100 pitch guys. Right, old school, got it done, had success in the postseason, not to Pettit's level. I mean, and watching the Yankees as much as I watch the Yankees, I mean, Pettit was a great Yankee. I never looked at Pettit and said he's a Hall of Famer. Now his postseason numbers do make a really good argument. I know.
Sorry, hold on.
Look, I'm a Ron Guidry. I'm a Ron Guidry guy.
I'll finish up. Go ahead. All right.
Let me just chime in on Pettit real quick. He does have that postseason thing. The one thing that bothers me, and a Hall of Fame shouldn't come down to one career game. His Game 6 start against the Diamondbacks. They were going down there with Schilling and Randy Johnson down there, and I just felt if Pettit can come up big, it would become a legendary night. And I think they lost that game 13-1.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, come on. Even Mariano Rivera blew a save every night. Again, we saw 2001.
That's blasphemy. Blasphemy.
Let's be honest.
Blasphemy.
Let's be honest.
No, I disregard that.
All right, go ahead. I'll get into it after. I'm doing my research, listening to you guys.
My $2,000 of therapy sessions after that game have erased that entirety from my memory.
I have never seen that ball end. I shut that ball off while I was in flight, and the infield was pulled in. And I was literally saying to her, my ex-girlfriend, living on Waverly Place in New York, and I was going to tell her, I was like, "This is going to be 4." And I was like, "This is history." And all of a sudden, I saw Luis Gonzalez like stupid. I shut the TV off. I have never, to this day, like the movie Titanic, I've never seen it. So
specifically about that entire situation, as we'll refer to it, to rub salt in the wounds of that World Series, I happened to be in Phoenix for New Year's after for New Year's after that World Series, and guess who was the Grand Marshal of the Phoenix New Year's parade?
I don't know.
Luis Gonzalez.
Oh yeah, no.
My entire family went to the parade. I would not go.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Like, we got to go to the New Year's parade. It'll be fun. I'm like, nope, not going. I'm not going.
Chris, who's your Hall of Fame recommendations?
All right. I'm gonna go Beltre, obviously, because he's a Hall of Famer. And he was one of the more fun players to watch. On top of his stats, Beltre, who doesn't love Adrian Beltre? And one thing people need to realize is it's not baseball heaven; it's a friggin' museum. And Adrian Beltre is one of the most fun players I've ever gotten to watch. I mean, he just played a game with this sense of joy, and then God forbid somebody tried to touch his head. It was just amazing. It was just so much fun. So Beltre, again, I agree with Frank. I agree with Mike. I agree. I mean, first ballot, Beltre's in. I'm going Helton for sure. Helton, again, I don't care where we play. His numbers away from Coors were friggin' great, and not to mention, he gave the world, Peyton Manning. So there's that. So we got Beltre, we got Helton. I'm going Andrew Jones 100% because best defensive center fielder I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm not saying ever, but in my lifetime, which is getting long. Andrew Jones for sure.
Slow your roll there.
I would vote for. I know. Well, I'm just saying. I would vote for Maurer. I would vote for Maurer, but I love what Frank said. I mean, I appreciate what Frank said about, he wasn't just a catcher. He didn't do a Buster Posey thing where he just stayed a catcher for his entire career. But I do like what Maurer did. Plus, I've always had a soft spot for anyone on the Twins. I mean, I love Kirby. I love Kerbeck. I'm a huge, weird closet Twins fan. So I would go Maurer. Now it gets weird. I'd go Pettit. I would go Pettit. And again, like what Frank said, maybe it's a homer thing, but I'm looking at right now. I just pulled up Kernan's Hall of Fame vote, and he voted for Pettit. And I'm going to quote it. He said, Pettit was a winner, especially when it mattered. Over his 18-year career and 3,300-plus innings pitched, the left-hander won 256 games while losing 153, a 6.26 winning percentage. In the postseason, and now this is what I think matters. In the postseason, he finished 19-11, good for his 30 winning percentage, but in the regular season, his ERA was 3.8. Postseason, I mean, it's hard not to vote for Pettit, man. So I would go for Pettit. I mean, I think if Messina's in, Pettit should get in. So I'd absolutely vote for him.
There.
Manny, yeah, I'm voting for him anyway. Screw it. Like I said earlier, you got what's his name in there? The shitty commissioner.
Selig, yeah.
Let's feel it.
Selig, yeah. Selig. Listen, it's funny. I was talking to a couple players today, group chat, and I said I miss the days that Bart Giamatti was the commissioner, because that guy loved base so much
that's why they got rid of him.
Write poetry. Yeah, well, he dropped dead is kind of why they got rid of him. But yeah, I mean, he kind of had a massive heart attack, and whatever. But I'd go Manny, I'd go A-Rod, I'd go Sheffield too, and Billy Wagner. I mean, I think Wagner deserves a little more love. You can't be a lefty reliever who came in and threw as hard as he did. And this is what interests me is, okay, so you got a guy like Wagner. Where does he fit? Look, Trevor Hoffman's in, Mo is in.
Lee Smith, right?
Where do you go with relievers? Where do you go? Lee Smith, yeah. Where do you go relievers? I mean, Wagner's the conversation, so I think Billy Wagner should be in there.
It's interesting.
That's it. I mean, I'm not, I mean, I am a smaller Hall guy, but I figure if you can vote for 10, at least give me 7, and then people can yell at me.
As you brought up Mussina, I think Pettit's more of a Hall of Famer than Mussina. I don't think he belongs.
I agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And
I
love Mussina. I love Mussina.
What's interesting is, and that's the beauty of this process is, you can comp guys that are on the ballot with players that are already in. And you can also comp guys that are on the ballot with players that you feel should be in that aren't. So, for example,
well, I mean,
Joe Mauer.
Whitaker is a great example.
Well, Joe Mauer and Don Mattingly are a good comp. Yeah. Right now Mauer has 3 batting titles as a catcher. That's rare. I don't know if
he's the only one
catcher that ever won 3.
Yes.
So, and not only is it rare, it's unprecedented. But his career was derailed at its peak by injury. Mattingly's was by the back. Mattingly's numbers were every bit as good as Boggs when they were playing together.
Yeah.
Mattingly's a one-team guy. So it's easy to, it's like, that's what I love about this process, right? What I love about the process is somebody that, like, Beltre's a no-brainer, right? That's the easiest player on the ballot. But then, like, you get to Wagner, like, and then and K-Rod's on the ballot. So who was a more dominant closer for a longer period of time? And then where does Wagner compare to Lee Smith? Like, that's a better, because you can't compare him to Hoffman and certainly not Rivera.
It's a good comp. It's a good comp.
Yeah.
You know, I vote for Wagner because he's the first player I ever saw live to throw 100 miles an hour. It's the only reason he gets.
Who out there? Seems like you really study. Who out there do you think is not in the Hall that's absolutely criminal that they're not there, especially if they've already timed out their 10 years?
So I've actually been tweeting a couple of these guys recently because I went back and especially looked at folks that fell off the ballot in their very first year of eligibility. And so, like this morning, I did a post about Reggie Smith, who, you know, 287 lifetime hitter, switch hitter, 314 home runs, just really tremendous numbers. Tommy Lasorda said he's the greatest hitter that ever played for him. He has a lot of, I do in my post, he's got more WAR than so-and-so, higher OPS than so-and-so. And I mean, he compares really favorably to a ton of guys who aren't just in the Hall of Fame, but who are like top shelf Hall of Famers. And he got 0.7% of the vote on his only ballot. Some other guys who I don't think should have been one and done are like, Kenny Lofton, a few guys who I really think should have gotten more of a look. And there are a few that are criminal. Fred McGriff is my favorite player ever, and he did not get in on the writer's ballot. He had to come back around after languishing on the writer's ballot for 10 years and finally got in on the ERA committee. But I thought that was criminal that the writers didn't elect Fred McGriff.
If Dale Murphy had one more home run, he'd be in.
Two more, right? He had 398.
Oh, I thought it was 399. I'm sorry.
I think it's
Chris.
398, yeah.
Chris, you flashed two fingers. Who is it for you?
Well, honestly, I'm still gonna go with Thurman Munson. I still believe he deserves to be in there. And if you look at that 10-year body of work that he had, if you look at the 1970s and the body of work that he had against Fisk and he had against Johnny Bench, he was better. But granted, his career was cut short. We know that. We all know why and how. But I think Munson's a guy, and I think Tion's a guy. I think Tion is my number two, and I think Tion absolutely deserves to be in because it's, again, you know what? If Bill Mazeroski can be in there for one home run, I'm pretty sure Louis Tion would get in there for weathering what he did and just how he did it. And let's not forget 1968 when he, what did he have? Like a 1.68 ERA in 68. Didn't win the Cy Young because Denny McClain won friggin' 30 games. But, I mean, dude, Tion, if it wasn't for Louis Tion, you would not see the proliferation of scouting in Latin America and things like that. He was a guy who changed then, and I do not understand how Louis Tion is not in. And I love, I talk to Louis and I talk to Dan all the time, and you know what? They're starting to get pissed. They're starting to get mad. They're like, you know what? Even Louis told Dan, he's like, if they put me in after I die, like Ron Santo, don't go. So, I mean, like, what the hell is baseball doing? You mean to tell me that Louis Tion means the world to, the Latin American community, not Boston, but whatever. You mean to tell me this guy should not be in the Hall of Fame? And you mean to tell me, like, it's, again, and Kernan wrote this a couple years ago. It's not baseball heaven, man. It's a baseball museum. And the truth is, Munson deserves to be in. Tion deserves to be in. Those are my two guys. And I'll even go a little nuttier and say Dave Parker should be in. But but those are my three. My top two you got, but I think Dave Parker deserves a look because the only reason he's not in there is because of the whole drug scandal in the 80s. I mean, it's the only reason Parker's not in. Let's be honest. I mean, Parker should be a Hall of Famer. And if you're going to water down the Hall of Fame and it's not a small hall, you know what? All three of those guys need to be in. And that's
I think Mattingly should be in there too, for what that's worth.
Mattingly's good, and I get it, but you know what? I mean, look. If Thurman's not getting in, Mattingly's not getting in.
No,
I mean, it's just I mean, it's. But what's? I mean, if it's a career cut short, what's the litmus test there? You know what I mean? I mean, is it?
Well, the litmus test can't be Sandy Koufax, right? Now he's the exception to the rule. He got in just a few years.
Like, can it? Can it? Because I mean, if you look at it, he was at the top of his game for what 8-9 years. Well, so was Thurman.
So was Mattingly.
9 years, top of his game.
Was there a better pure hitter in baseball during Mattingly's era? I'm sure there.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I agree with you. But so how does that work? I mean, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this because I do think all of these guys that we've mentioned should be in.
Frank, how about you?
I mean, it's a tough situation because you can't read into it stats that might have happened but didn't. Like everybody says Bonds was going to be a Hall of Famer before he touched steroids. Probably true, but we don't know what his career looks like otherwise. If Mattingly had never gotten hurt, we don't know what the rest of his career looks like. In the mid-'80s, he was probably the best all-around hitter in the game. He had more power than Gwynn. He had, a knack for run production. He was a tremendous hitter. We talked a little bit earlier about Mattingly as sort of a Mauer comp, and I think the big difference there is that it comes down to position, right?
Yep.
In baseball history, you'll find a lot more first basemen that hit better than Mattingly than you will catchers that hit better than Mauer.
Right.
First base has always been a major big-time premium offensive position where guys hit 50, 60, 70 home runs a year, which was not really Mattingly's bag. Whereas catcher winning 3 batting titles, unprecedented. In terms of Munson, I wonder, do you find even more first basemen better than Mattingly than catchers better than Munson? I'm not sure. But, in either case, the body of work is what it is. It was cut short, and there's a lot of careers that have been cut short for whatever reason. So many guys, are turning into what-if stories. And it's just hard to consider that when you're looking at this. Is this a guy whose plaque is going to hang in Cooperstown forever? Based on what they could have done, what we anticipated that they would do, or what they actually did. For good reason, bad reason, injury, or, otherwise.
I want to bring up one more topic just because I got, this one fascinates me because I really know how I feel. The metrics of WAR, wins above replacement. I hate it with a passion.
Well, you're talking to the right guy down there.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
I cannot. God bless him because I don't have that in me to do. Frank, you're a way more patient man than I am.
So, you all know that I am not a huge proponent of these more advanced metrics.
No kidding.
I am not anti-data. I'm not anti-information. I'm not inherently anti any of these things. The thing that drives me crazy is that the pursuit of sort of optimizing the game, making it more efficient, doing things, that the spreadsheet tells you to do, even if it works enough for teams to invest all this money in these data departments in their front offices and so on, it takes away from some of the aesthetic of the game of baseball that made us fall in love with it in the first place. Like, we know that before they made the bases bigger and limited pickoffs, that stolen bases had become like a low probability play, like because they didn't improve your run expectancy unless you were a guy with like an 85% success rate or better. They did the math that showed this. If you're less than an 85% successful base stealer, you just should never run. And similarly, putting the ball on the ground, has been mathematically proven to have worse outcomes because, gloves are bigger, infields are better manicured, hops are more routine, guys are better athletes. So, generation after generation, ground balls are going to be fielded more successfully more often than used to be the case.
And the shift became a way of playing defense, not a strategy.
Yeah.
For single hitter for one hitter once in a while when Joe Madden brought it in to play. Right? It was, hey, we're going to do it for this one guy. The shift became a way based on the numbers. Right? The shift became the way to defend.
Yeah. So there's so many data points that it allows teams to do all this stuff and put guys in the shift, knowing where the ball is going to be hit. And so you chase this gamified, optimized approach where Kyle Schwarber is now a leadoff hitter. The guy bats 197 and strikes out 200 times a year. And yet he is a successful leadoff hitter. He scored over 100 runs. He drove in over 100 runs. He was on base a lot. But he's the anti what we think of as a leadoff hitter, right? A scrappy guy.
Absolutely.
Gets on, steals a base.
Anti-Ricky Henderson.
Yeah, anti-Rock Reigns, anti-Ricky Henderson.
Yeah, and the reason...
Kenny Lofton.
Right, those guys are all leadoff man prototypes, the way we think about it.
Right.
But Schwarber gets penciled in the number one slot day after day after day because the approach works for them. It's not that it doesn't work, it's that it's a much less entertaining... the goal, they want him to either walk, homer, or strike out. That's part of the game. That's what they've built the offense around, is the expectation of a 3-outcome, hitter at the top. And I just don't know if that does a service to the fans. I think not.
The one thing I'll say, I'm not going to say anything good about the commissioner, Mr. Clownfred, but getting rid of the... Yes. I think I picked that up from Mike. Getting rid of the shift needed to happen because it became a strikeout or home run game, and it became really tough to watch. But it did. It did. But it's just like the NBA for years outlawed the zone defense, okay? Because it was better for the game. Yeah. Now they allow it, but it was better for the game, and that's why I like that move.
But
I mean, I don't know.
I went back and forth on the shift. I thought that I don't care if they outlawed it one way or the other. Like, I go back to the hitter. Like, the hit them where they ain't thing. Yeah. Like, you're a professional baseball player.
Figure it out.
Your whole life, you learned how to hit the ball into places where it couldn't be defended. Like, you're telling me that, like, these guys can't slap the ball the opposite way if they have to?
I agree with that 100%.
You're telling me, like,
yeah, me
like,
too.
like Anthony Rizzo's smart enough to know that I can drop a bunt down with 2 strikes because the third baseman's standing next to the second base bag, and what I'm going to ground out, or I'm going to foul out, or I'm going to get on. But one of the three, it's going to happen one way or the other. So why not? Like it's clearly there, but like, you don't get paid for hitting singles.
Chris, you're up against the clock, I know, but Chris, go ahead. I know you're up against the clock here.
I'm up against it. I know I'm up against it.
Just as we aggravated you even more.
No, I mean, yeah. God, I mean, look, I don't think Major League Baseball needs to legislate how to hit, how to prepare. I hate it. I hate it. Absolutely. I do, and I just don't. I don't know, man. Anthony Rizzo, Mike, you bring up Anthony Rizzo. You know what he does? He chokes up with 2 strikes, and he has a different approach. Everybody who's ever played baseball has ever done. before you get your teacher man crap in there. I mean, I mean, I like Rizzo, and look, I will say this: I do have to get the hell out of here because it's 7. But as a Yankee fan, I like Rizzo. I think we got him for one more year. I would like to see his 2-strike approach. He showed up, goes the other way. I don't know. But now they banned the shift, so he can't even go the other way. I am just so tired of Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred and his Morgan Sword and his frickin' minions legislate how you play the damn game instead of letting players learn and adapt. But no, here's a rule. Enjoy. This is how you have to play. The hell out of here. Fooey.
right.
Fooey, I say.
Fooey.
But I do have to get out of here. I'm up against it. I gotta go pick up a dog at 7.
Awesome.
Well, after this podcast, you're going to get a bunch of Big Fly hat orders because
Good,
you can't think of
I don't
something
even
to get the
have one.
missus
I
for
sent them all
Valentine's
you.
Day. What else would the missus want for Valentine's Day than a Big Fly?
I'm wearing this friggin' thing. I'm wearing my ball 9 fishing hat. So there you go. Guys, I love you. I gotta go. I am up against it at 7.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
See ya.
Louis T.
See you, buddy.
Hall of Fame.
Adios.
Adios. Muchachos. Later.
The one thing I was going to bring up a few minutes ago talking about Tion was Chris, when we saw you guys in New York last year, a little over a year for the Hall of Fame dinner, had Tion's son go up and introduce me to Louis. And I told his son, I told him a story growing up in the Bay Area in the 70s. The first time the A's lost, as I was a baseball fan, was the 75 playoffs. I thought it was like the roller derby. They were just destined to win every game, every year. And I told his son, I said, tell your dad I had just turned 10 and he absolutely ruined my year when he beat the A's in game 1 of the ALCS. And I was like, what is going on? Who is this guy? I didn't know who he was. And he got a nice chuckle out of that. And it looked like a satisfying smile when his son told him what I had said.
That's awesome.
So can I just add one more? Can we get back to war for just a second?
Please.
What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
It makes me crazy, right? And Frank, you put some amazing side by side player comparisons up, and it just makes me even more pissed off when I see him because it just and then the comments make me like lose my mind, right? Like as people can't see the forest from the trees. And my argument is always this. So Ohtani's a great example. Ohtani leads the league in WAR. Ohtani's irreplaceable. Like your team is 19 games under 500, right? So if he doesn't play, what are you going to be? 25 games under 500? Like right. What? Like there's no. It's purely individually. It's a purely individual statistic. And it doesn't take into consideration that, like, how irreplaceable are you if you're on a last place team? You're not affecting the outcome of team performance to that extent that it validates WAR as a stat that talks about what the actual ultimate goal, which is winning the World Series. That's the end all be all is your team won the World Series. You want to give me. You want to give me Corbin Carroll and I'm willing to listen to that because the Diamondbacks, nobody thought that the Diamondbacks would be there last year. And if Corbin Carroll was a 30.6 WAR, like, yeah, I get it. He didn't play. They weren't as good. I get that. But if I have not, I will not, and I never will dig into the components of what makes it up. But if you're replacing Shohei Ohtani with David Fletcher, his WAR should be 1 million.
Yep. So right? the exactly what you're saying is the motivation for why they want to create it. They want to be able to evaluate players in a vacuum, completely separate from team performance, completely divorced from any other aspect of what's going on. So they can look at you in a vacuum, regardless of who you play for, what stadium you're at, etc. And doing that necessarily requires the imposition of all kinds of theoretical constants and like placeholders and guesses and estimates, and that nobody truly knows how the sausage is made, because you can't watch a play on the field and see half a war happen. You can watch somebody hit a home run, you can calculate the total bases, the slugging, the on base, all those traditional things you can do using a calculator and like your eyes, right? But batting runs, fielding runs, defensive runs saved, WAR, wins above average, expected anything, weighted, expected weighted on base average. Like, no, all this requires like these front office data science departments who are going to tell you why a player is so good. And by the way, Kevin Apier produced more value than Sandy Koufax. Did you know that? And by the way, Brett Gardner produced more value than Don Mattingly. Did you know that?
Oh, there are Yankee fans that would have said that for sure.
Yeah. I love me some Gardy, but not an impact guy in the same way.
No.
It may like the stat that I like, because it's indicative of current and future result, is hard hit rate. Because it's always been that, right? Like he's squaring it up, but he's just not finding a hole. And then the next thing you know, the guy's got a 9-game hitting streak because he's making solid contact, and then the ball starts falling or traveling or whatever happens. Like, I like that because that tells me, like, hey, this guy's scuffling right now, but he's really hitting the ball. It's just bad luck. Good defense, bad, I do like that. I just, the rest of it, you can tell me to get off my porch and start paying attention to this. It just, to me, it's like, it's just manufactured reasons to give players value that they don't have.
Did you know that Rick Russell is actually a lot better than Sandy Koufax?
We had better glasses.
At what?
I would argue Paul Russell was better than Rick Russell, but that was.
And yeah, like you were saying about hard hit rate, I think a few years ago, Stanton hit a ball like 121 miles an hour that went for a double play, but then,
Thank you.
Then you're like, well, if he gets right, he's going to hit him 1,000 miles. And then he did for like 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. The launch angle. I get why networks promote that, because somebody watching it might think it's cool. I could give a rip what his launch angle is or how hard the ball's hit. Like you just said, it was a double play.
And listen, like I said before, I'm not anti-data or information or, more knowledge is better. It's just they look at these outcomes, and in this quest for optimization, too many absolutes get put in. It's like, well, you have to hit the ball in the air. You can't hit the ball on the ground. So, and they can measure everything now, right? They can measure exit velocity. They can measure launch angle. So if the task is you have to hit the ball in the air, you can't hit the ball on the ground, how are we going to know the difference? We're going to measure your launch angle. We're going to measure your exit velocity. When you put them together, a certain angle and a certain velocity combined is called a barrel. You want barrels. And then you got barrel rate and you got this and that. And so, like you were saying about hard hit rate, barrel rate, that's not inherently bad. Like, yeah, those are the balls that are the most likely to go for a home run. But in each individual situation, the guy that you're facing, like the score, the runners on base, the count, the outs, that those don't lend themselves to absolutes.
No.
You have to be more situational. And so the situational aspect of the game, I think, is what's going away. Fewer guys have a two-strike approach now. A lot of teams say, take your A swing, take your daddy hacks in any count.
Right.
You get to 2 strikes. Look, you might strike out, but if you strike out, at least it's only 1 out instead of a double play, which would be 2 outs. And you have one more shot to put one over the fence. So still take your big swing with 2 strikes. If you strike out, so what? Everybody strikes out 200 times a year now. You don't need to feel bad about it. There's no embarrassment. There's no shame anymore.
Yeah.
Guys used to feel personally insulted. You struck them out twice in a game.
And then what it leads to is you watch a game and you hear like that, they're 1 for their last 20 with less than 2 outs and runners in scoring position. Because there's no thought process of I'm going to get, there's nobody out, guy in front of me just doubled, I'm going to move him. It happens so rarely now that it's like seeing Haley's Comet, and we're going to do anything to manufacture that run. And then guess what teams found a way to get to the playoffs this year? Teams with the highest team batting average.
Yep.
Right. And teams that were manufacturing runs. So Arizona manufactured runs all year.
And
they didn't have 350
situationally.
They played situational baseball. They played hard. I mean, they played. I mean, the Astros, for as much as we want to hate the Astros,
and we do,
and we do. I mean, they did hit their share of home runs. They moved runners around. Like they had stuff. Like they had run. They ran. They had stuff. They were moving all the time. But you know what the optimization leads to? It leads to throwing and not pitching. So I don't need you to worry about even the second time through the batting order, because we know that statistically you're going to get your expected outcome the second time through is terrible. Just give me everything you have. Throw your A pitch 1. Smoltz talks about it all. Smoltz talks about it all the time. And I'm not a giant Smoltz fan, but he'll talk about, like, there were games that they didn't see my slider until the 4th inning. There were games that they didn't see my curveball until the 6th inning because I kept that in my bag. I didn't throw my A pitch all the time. I threw what was working, and then I would mix in other stuff when they already knew, okay, they've seen my fastball enough. They think they're going to hit it. Then I would throw a split. I'd start mixing it in, and pitching has been pushed aside by throwing. And the best pitchers still pitch. Strider, Cole, they're still pitching. I mean, Blake Snell's out there looking for what, $200 and something million, and like a 5-inning start from Blake Snell would be a dream.
Yeah, he's got 2 Cy Youngs now, 0 complete games in his career. He's only pitched into the 8th inning, I think, 1 time ever. It's just, it's completely different. The whole third time through issue. The kind of game that I like even less than I think I expected to are these games where you might see a team score 6-7 runs, but they're all on solo homers. I mean, yeah. I love home runs. I mean, they're exciting, but I also formed that opinion when they were somewhat less frequent.
Right.
Yeah. And so now you watch 6 solo home runs and the team, wins 6-2 or whatever. There's really no action on the bases otherwise. And you might also have 15 strikeouts. And it's an unsatisfying brand of baseball to watch, I think. I love the high action plays. I love balls in play. I love stolen bases. I love hit and runs. Yeah. I love small ball. There's just more to watch, especially if you're watching it go down in person or on television like slow motion replays. You can only see so many different angles of somebody going upper tank,
Yeah.
I agree.
And I still love that. It's just, I think the 100% of runs scoring on solo homers is maybe the kind of game I enjoy watching the least.
Maybe I'm just old. Take me back 25, 30 years ago and watch Greg Maddux throw a complete game on 90 pitches. That's fun. That was fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a lot of pitches for him, 90.
Yeah, right.
Pitching to contact and, making guys look silly by making weak contact.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks.
Appreciate you guys coming on, eh?
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, John.
That was fun. Thanks.
Mike.
Good to see you, Frank.
Man. All right, be good, boys.
Be well.
Right.
See you, Sean.
All
right,
Thank you.
See you. Thanks again, Frank.
Take care.
That was enjoyable. You know what else was enjoyable? The Dallas Cowboys losing. recap the NFL real quick. Dallas is out. It's a beautiful day. I think you're going to see wholesale changes on that coaching staff there. I'm not so sure Dak is going to get his extension. He's got a great regular season, but 2-5 in playoffs isn't going to get it done. And I don't know. I think he'll be back next year, but not in the contract he's probably looking for. Game of the weekend. Detroit was phenomenal with the Rams. It was a storyline with Matt Stafford coming home, and it was just fun to watch. And it was a great game. And the Lions fans crowd was super charged up. They're going to be jacked this week when Tampa comes in and try and win their second playoff game this year. And I've always been a big Dan Campbell fan since the day they hired him. Happy for Jared Goff. That was just good football to watch. Sean McVay, not sure what he was doing the last few minutes. You got the ball in the 44. I know you got that holding call. You're out of field goal range, but what are you punting for? You want to trust your defense? Fine. You only have one timeout and plus a 2-minute warning. It's not enough. And give Detroit credit. They took a couple risks throwing the ball, but there was an out pass to the running back that was safe, and then throwing the ball to St. Brown. That dude's a player too. So I'm happy for Detroit. Happy for the fan base. And we'll see what they can do this week. Philadelphia, how good were those coordinators that left after last season? Arizona, they're terrible early in the year. They showed a little spark at the end, a little bit of bite. And the Colts, same thing. Colts are getting there. They lost their quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew is okay, but he's not a playoff guy. So, game of the week this week is about 5 hours west of here out in Buffalo. First true playoff road game for Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to go out and implode. He's just not. He's not going to be intimidated by going to Buffalo or anything like that. He's Pat Mahomes. I think if anybody, I'm going to be rooting hard for the Bills because I hate the Chiefs. But if anybody thinks the Chiefs are just going to roll over because they have to go on the road, no, not going to happen. Bad weather isn't going to bother them. They played in a freezer in an icebox the other night and won that game against Miami. I do think the Bills are going to win. I think it's going to be close. But I'll say this for the Bills. They have to get off to a good start. If they come out and they fall behind 10-0, 13-0, 14-0, they're going to be in trouble. Because I just remember that game against the Bengals last year at home. They never really looked in it. They got behind early, and it looked like they got down early, and they never recovered. And if that happens against the Chiefs, it's not going to be a good day. That said, I think they're going to win the game. I think they'll be fine. Josh Allen's going to have to do a lot with his legs too, and James Cook is going to have to cook. So I'm looking forward to that. And my son Liam enjoyed his first Bills playoff game as a self-anointed Bills fan a couple weeks ago, or a couple months earlier in the year. Got a lot of Bills stuff from Santa Claus, but he enjoyed the game last night, Sunday, or yesterday. I don't even know what day it is. Anyway, Frisco over Green Bay. Good for the Pack to get where they are. Not quite ready for the next step. I think Frisco is going to have their way. Detroit will take out Tampa to set up a visit out to the Bay Area for the NFC title game. I'm going to take Baltimore over Houston. I think it's going to be close. C.J. Stroud was my favorite quarterback coming out in the draft last year, and then I find out in recent weeks that Dave Ziegler, the then GM of the Raiders, wanted to try and trade up for him, and Josh McDaniels nixed it so he could bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. That makes more hair fall out of my head, and quite frankly, I don't have that much to give. So, Frisco, Detroit, Baltimore, Buffalo. I think this will be a good weekend for all of them. Raider coaching search, Antonio Pierce. He has had the Titans asked to talk to him. I think he met with the Falcons already. The word from Vegas is that he's got the insider track. Champ Kelly apparently knocked it out of the park in his GM interview with Carolina. But I did read earlier tonight on Twitter, the Raiders have satisfied the Rooney Rule for the coaching search, and let's get it done, Mark. I don't want another glamour coach. We've tried that. Gruden didn't work out. McDaniels wasn't a glamour coach, but he was, McGenius is what they called him. It was terrible. Bringing a guy that knows the organization with Pierce. Hadn't been there long, but he's a great leader. He knows what it means to be a Raider, and the players followed him. And when you have a sticky, rules oriented, hard ass coach, and he leaves and it's not successful, you bring in a players coach your next time around, and that's AP. He did a great job. He went 5-4. And he did it, and people forget he did it with a 4th-round rookie quarterback. Didn't have a lot of experience. I liked Aiden. He was okay. I don't think he's our quarterback of the future, but you look what Pierce did, and he won games with him. Now he lost a few. Losing that 3-0 game to Minnesota is a gut punch. But I think Pierce is your guy, so let's get it done. There's a great shot, if you haven't seen it, of Pierce and Champ Kelly represent the Raiders at the Martin Luther King Parade in Vegas with NFL Hall of Famer Richard Seymour. It looks like he's going to start getting involved with the organization, and I'm good with that. And lastly, I don't want to end on a sour note, but Jesus, Chicago fans. Not all of you, I'm sure. Jerry Krause got inducted into the Ring of Honor over the weekend, and okay, yeah, he gets blamed for the breakup of the Jordan Bulls in the late 90s and, whatever. But seriously, what the hell? I mean, get over yourselves. You start booing him. The man's dead. You boo him. His wife's there, the widow, and she's in tears. The Last Dance was 25 years ago. I mean, be thankful that it happened instead of focusing on how it ended or why it ended. You know why it ended? The players got old. They get old. It was just disgusting to see that and to see Mrs. Krause in tears. That is just terrible. So, hate to end it on a note like that, but Bulls fans, you got to do better. And you know what? Look, I love my sports. I get upset like anybody when things don't come up for my team. You also have to keep it in context. There's a difference between sports loyalty and real life. Some of those morons in the Chicago, Illinois area learn that. So, on that note, folks, love the conversation with Chris, Mike, and at Knockeye Eddie. And if you ever want to get into a debate on the war or the Hall of Fame, he's a must follow on Twitter. And it's Mike Ross too. But for Knockeye Eddie, I'm thrilled that he was able to make the show tonight. So be good. We'll talk to y'all next week. And next week, I imagine we'll be talking more NFL playoffs. Bye now.